in the garden here. I can plant the wrong plant in the garden, go away for 2 years and come back, and I go, oh, the plant appears to have covered the entire garden in itself, and it's swamped all the lovely things that we're doing really nicely, and we've got a monoculture or a weed or an invasive or whatever. Cool. On the other hand, pick the right plant, put it in there, and it, you know, harmonizes with other parts of the garden, promotes them in certain ways, because it might be that the plant I put in there is the favored food of the moth, you know, the larvae that turns into X moth or butterfly. So before I know it, I haven't just planted a plant, I've got a proliferation of butterflies, and etc., etc. And to me, it's how can regenerative tourism have knock-on effects? To promote cycle tourism, you need to improve the quality of signage, make it safer for people on holiday to cycle along the streets, make sure there are restaurants and cafes set up around that will support cycle tourism as it distributes itself around your region. You now take cycle tourism away and you're left with good streets, decent signage, cafes and restaurants and shops. So that's, you know, you can imagine that to me as a regenerative way of behaving. We need to cut global emissions in half by 2030 to give us, I think it's a 60% or greater chance of staying within 1.5. Without wanting to go into the details of all of that, depending upon who we're talking to in tourism, a significant part of that, of course, is about reduction. It's about the reduction of tourism's emissions. But I spend a lot of time trying to engage in the thought that it's more than that. And there are many parts to that. One part of it is that I want to say to people that I believe in beauty of tourism. I hope that comes across through, you know, some of my earlier answers. I'm not just an anti-tourism. We shouldn't go on holiday. I think we should have as much holiday as possible and stop designing our lives through the need to produce and work, and therefore spending time celebrating the power of leisure, which should be a huge opportunity. But yes, where tourism has a disproportionate carbon or other environmental or social impact, we need to bring that back into balance. But what I want to do is see this as part of us developing a tourism that is fit for the climate emergency, fit in the sort of, well, the Darwinian sense, in sort of has its appropriate niche inside of things, rather than, and that it's does its role, does its bit, that we help, you know, if we are encouraging people to go to parks and we are supporting the reforestation of parks and protecting coral reefs and seagrass and you name it, then we are doing our bit in promoting biodiversity, connecting people to it, etc. And we are finding a role for ourselves. Hold me to account. I would love to learn from next generations, future generations who haven't caused the negative impacts that my generation and the older ones have. So we're sitting here in, you know, inverted commas, positions of some level of greater influence and power and responsibility. But that sure as hell doesn't mean we have all the answers. We're working with some universities at the moment, and some of that is about working with the universities as bodies of learning, talking to professors, talking to students, engaging on that level. But another part of it for me very much is saying to the students, saying, what is it you want? What is it you need? How should this be guided? And actually, sometimes it's even, you know, it's very difficult to get a university to declare a climate emergency. They have so many complex interests, etc., that persuading them to go over the line and declare a climate emergency, really hard, even this tourism school. But if I can engage with the students and say, who of you as a tourism student wants to be taught about a tourism fit for the previous 33 decades, or not fit, but that was designed for the previous 3 decades, or who of you would like to be taught and engage and explore tourism fit for the next 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 decades? I imagine the majority of them would be talking about wanting to be trained up for something that was going to exist. Running a big tourism business, I'd say, well, in 2008, if I'd knocked on your door as a hotelier and said, you should watch out for Airbnb, they'd go, I've never heard of Airbnb. And in 2009, they'd have said, oh, it's some kids sleeping on a floor in San Francisco. But by 2016, it was selling 1.5 million nights a year in Barcelona alone, and was worth more than every single legacy major hotel brand. Change, disruption, coming through fast. And I think to not have that model, to not be massively looking at how you can genuinely, meaningfully engage, you're going to end up being Kodak, or Xerox, right? You're going to be it's like, so you might as well get with the program, because the program is happening. One of my favorite stories I use a lot in talks is that there was a couple of years ago in Scotland, in the Shetland Islands, which are northern islands off the north of Scotland. I'm pretty certain it was the Shetlands, not the Orkneys. So if I get it the wrong way around, I apologize to the one I got it wrong. But anyway, islands north of Scotland, and the doctors there started prescribing hiking and bird watching rather than prescriptions to pharmaceutical drugs. And I tell this to people in talks when I'm talking to them about the opportunity for tourism, when I say, doctors are prescribing tourism. They're giving people tourism as a prescription. We've got to see that this is where our position is on where we can be part of the regeneration of our own human well-being through the regeneration of the natural world of which we are intrinsically part.